Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Well, that was a disgusting Sixers game. That was a brutal game to watch as the Sixers fall in Toronto for the 14th consecutive time in the regular season. Not that that means anything to me because the squads that started that streak have no relationship to the team that's playing now, but it is weird that they can't find a way to win in that city ever in the regular season. Joel Embiid had 0 points today. 0 points. Are you serious? For all the smack that he talks, for all the crap that he said about load management being BS, you looked lethargic as hell. You looked as if you didn't want to compete. You can't be saying load management, oh, what BS, and then come out and perform like that. I have to give credit to Toronto. Their game plan to double team him every single time he touched the ball was clearly effective. But if Embiid believes he is the best big man in the league, when he gets doubled like that, he needs to have the basketball IQ to say, I can still take control of this game. It just will be in a different way. Okay, I know the double team's coming. I will effectively give my teammates better looks once they give me the ball in the post and I can kick it out to an open guy. He needs to know that he can still find ways to be a difference maker even though he's getting doubled. But instead, he's forcing these jumpers when his jump shot was clearly not falling. He took a 3 late in this basketball game, and I wanted to strangle him at that moment because what are you doing? What are you doing? The Sixers were up. There was 2 minutes left in the game. He's in the corner popping a 3. Bruh, are you kidding me? He was awful, pathetic, missed all of his free throws. Tough night for the Sixers not to have Kyle O'Quinn. Really. Because I would have never brought Embiid back into the game late. Before we dive more into this, do not forget about the promo code BROADS that you can use at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off of your SeatGeek's total purchase. You get to go to a game, you get to use that money on parking, food, beer. It's a no-brainer. Use the promo code BROADS today. So Embiid. Something else. He's something else. Marc Gasol is his father. There's no denying that at this point. It blows my mind that at that size, even though the double team was coming, he can't find a way to get a point. He can't find a way to use his size at times to get fouled. Let's get to Ben Simmons. Still frustrating offensively. 14 assists, which is nice, except he had 7 turnovers. There were plenty of times when he played Kawhi Leonard in Toronto and he would turn the ball over an obnoxious amount. Come on. Kawhi Leonard's not on the other side right now. You can't be turning the ball over 7 times. And late down the stretch, he had that play to Tobias Harris. When Tobias Harris was behind the defenders, you got to find a way to get the ball there. You have to. And then don't even get me started on that 3-point turnaround jumper with 6 seconds left where he heaved the ball. He needs to know better. Are you kidding me? Our 2 stars that we expect to bring us to the promised land failed miserably late in a basketball game. And Embiid failed miserably all game long. All game long. We will go as far as these 2 players take us. And it's that obvious. Well, we saw some really tough plays down the stretch from these 2 guys that we are expecting big things from. Ben has made that pass so many times, but it was as if it was lackadaisical for that moment. A no look, try and lob it over the defenders. No. Make the pass. Make the pass, execute it. Make it happen. And for him to actually jack that shot up late, it bothers me. He's all about facilitating. He's all about making his teammates better and finding them in spots. Well, he clearly didn't know how much time was left on the clock, but there were open guys. Like, in the corner, Al Horford standing in the corner, like, if he realized and knew how much time was left, he would have been able to drove and kick it out or just drive. Although, at that point, we needed a three to tie the game up because Siakam had a really good play late where he did a spinorama move on Al Horford. Embiid was there. He got fouled and won. That put them up. Then they ended up getting free throws at one point, knocking both of those down. The Raptors went on a 10-0 run to close out the game. So the Sixers, just like in Game 7, failed to find ways to score down the stretch in Toronto in a really tight game. Looking at some of the other players, Josh Richardson continued to find his game, 25 points. Now, one thing, if I can maybe pick on Josh Richardson, there was a 3-point play where maybe he sold it, maybe he didn't. All right, but he got to the charity stripe. He missed all 3 free throws. He had a good game. He was good defensively. He had that really good play late, actually, which resulted in a shot clock violation for the Sixers to have a little bit of run there at the end to make a play. But you got to hit your free throws. And speaking of free throws, this team continues to struggle so much from the free throw line. They shot 56% from the free throw line. Now you look at Toronto and they shot poorly too. They shot 63.6%. But I study the Sixers. I watch the Sixers every single night they're on. They continue to fail at the free throw line. That goes on the individuals. Like, make your damn free throws. For the millionth time, I'm not begging for 100% from the line. But you got to give me more than this. Tobias had 18 points. I saw some aggressiveness out of him. He goes through spurts of aggressiveness throughout a game. There'll be times where he's super aggressive, then there'll be times where he cools off, and then he'll be super aggressive, then there's times where he cools off. But I didn't think Tobias had a bad game. There was one moment where his defense stood out to me big time. Fred Van-Vleet tried to drive on him, and this was later in the game. He made a big time play, and he was fist pumping in the air. He was fired up, and he was being an emotional leader. That was a big-time play out of him. Mike Scott made some big threes. Furkan Korkmaz made 1 3. He struggled from deep. He had 9 points in his 15, 16 minutes. I didn't think Furkan Korkmaz was horrendous, but he needs to make the threes or he isn't as effective as he needs to be. Matisse Thybulle, his foul trouble continues. And you saw, at times, the physicality being a difference for the kid. They were lowering their shoulder, testing him. Okay, yeah, defensive player. I'll show you defensive player. And he got multiple fouls within minutes. And smell you later, Matisse. You're on the bench. It's reality that, he isn't as powerful as we thought defensively coming in. He fouls. He just fouls way too much. He can't get on the floor. He cannot get on the floor because he is consistently in foul trouble. And this is a good team, all right? So this is what you're going to be seeing in the playoffs physically. He might not be strong enough to defend some of these guys. It was on display in this one. Brett Brown went with Neto over Trey Burke. And his reasoning behind that was he doesn't want anyone to get stale. So he didn't want Neto to not get any run for multiple games, and he wanted to get him rolling and keep him in some sort of rhythm so he doesn't get stale. The difference in this game wasn't Trey Burke playing or Neto playing. I understand that logic, trying to figure out what the roles are going to be for the legit deep run of this thing, so that doesn't bother me. But, I didn't think Brett Brown had the greatest game in the world. I think if you realize that Joel Embiid is struggling, you need to figure it out. Now, no one would have expected Toronto to bring that type of double team to that extent consistently throughout the game, but that's where, as a coach, you need to adjust. Okay, Joel, we're going to do this. If you get the ball here, you get double team. This is going to be open. That's going to be open. You can take it here. Things like that. I think we needed to still run. You can run through Embiid. If he's your best player, and that's what you want to do, you want to run through your best player, you can still find ways to get good looks off of that double team. And you got to say, Joel, you can't be taking these mid-range jumpers all the time. If it's not falling, it's not your night. For Joel Embiid to pop a three late in the fourth quarter when the Sixers were up just a couple points and he bricks it, like, Joel, it's not your night. You can't be popping threes in the corner. It just can't happen. So for Brett Brown, he needs to figure out how to utilize Joel Embiid. Or, you know what? If it's really not your night and you realize maybe Joel is not the answer, then you find out other ways to make this happen. But I did not see an adjustment out of Brett Brown once he realized Joel Embiid was not the answer. Looking at some of the Raptors players, Siakam, he's legit, 25-7, and as I stated, he had that big play, the and one, which made a difference. Joel Embiid got the foul at that moment. Man, Joel Embiid, he was brutal at times. Rushing things, trying to dribble too much, way too far away from the basket, trying to dribble. It's going all over the place. He looks, I don't know. His body was moving in ways that just looked weird. We just had Carson Wentz have the worst game of his career. And the next night, Joel Embiid scored 0 points. He gets to the free throw line. You expect him to at least make a free throw. Brick. This is hard to do. You can't even try and score 0 points. It just bothers me because the way Joel Embiid carries himself. I know that this won't happen for another 3 million games that Joel Embiid plays basketball in, right? Like, this will probably not happen again. Let's be real. The chances of this happening was so small anyway, it's wild. I wonder what the Vegas odds would have this set as a bet if I went on my DraftKings Sportsbook app to see, plus 7 million that Embiid scores 0 points in a basketball game. That's how rare this really is. So I don't expect this to ever happen again. But for the way Joel Embiid carries himself, for him to say he's the best big man in the league, for him to be disgusted with the organization for the load management and the way that he carried himself in this basketball game, the way he looked, his body language, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. A lot of fans want to use the excuse, it's just not his night. There's a difference when it's just not your night and that display. There are plenty of times when the ball does not fall for an individual. That's fine. We watched it happen to Tobias Harris. We watched it happen all throughout the league. Sometimes there are players who are good in this league and their shot is not falling on that night. There's 82 games. It's a long season. That's okay. But it comes down to body language at that point. It comes down to how can I still help my basketball team? Not popping threes in the corner, not taking mid-range jumpers, not taking fadeaways when you're getting double teamed. There's other ways, and that's when it comes down to the coach needs to really drill something into his head because he's not smart enough. We know he started basketball so late in his life. He started in his teens. He's not smart. He's not basketball IQ smart. He's physically dominant, and that's why he is who he is. So he doesn't even understand, all right, it's not my night. Let me find ways to help this team in other aspects. So if you're the coach, we got to do this. We have to do this. That's the way I see it. But for them to have it in their hands, it sucks. It's a loss that they should have definitely found a way to win. For the Raptors, to not have Kyle Lowry, to not have Serge Ibaka, they competed. Absolutely. Pascal Siakam did his thing, as I stated. Van-Vleet was great. Hollis-Jefferson was great. Marc Gasol bringing it defensively. We know what he does to Embiid defensively. He's a powerhouse. He's a brick. He's smart. I just talked about how Embiid is not smart. Marc Gasol, very smart. He's sort of like an Al Horford, a veteran who just does the little things correctly that no one really picks out. And speaking about Horford, I didn't really speak about his night. The shining moment for him was that big-time block. It was a big-time block late in the fourth quarter, off the glass. It was great. It was electric. But it wasn't enough. If I remember correctly, did that come off of an Embiid turnover? Wow. Wow. I think they walk into that building and they're scared. They're scared for some reason. They don't know how to mentally get over the hump of winning a basketball game in Toronto. But you look at this fourth quarter, right? You look at this fourth quarter, and it's another fourth quarter where this squad scores a very low amount of points, 16 points, and they can't execute late. How are you supposed to win legit games, meaningful games, if you can't find ways to score in the fourth quarter? You saw a totally different team in this one than we saw against Miami and that we saw against the Spurs. Being away compared to being home totally is a factor, but it's not an excuse. This team needs to find ways to win on the road. Their road record stinks. This is one they let slip. This is one they let slip. I didn't really have a problem with what they did defensively. And like I stated, there were times where I thought defensively they made plays. Al Horford's block. Josh Richardson, one-on-one, made a play defensively, which led to the shot clock violation. Tobias, the one I talked about with the fist pump. I didn't think their defense was abysmal late or anything. It came down to execution on the other side. And Joel Embiid having a pathetic performance and Ben Simmons late, it really screwed this team up. It really did screw the team up. And then if you want to look at the play at the end for Tobias Harris to get a look from three, it wasn't one of Brett Brown's smoothest plays, but Brett normally does come out with some fire plays out of timeouts. That just wasn't his strongest one. But once again, that isn't the issue. That wasn't the issue in the game. The issue is your star, your superstar, Joel Embiid, I guess you can say superstar Joel Embiid, gave you 0 points. And Ben Simmons gives you 7 turnovers. I know 14 assists is magnificent, and he really did have some great assists in there. But when you mix in 7 turnovers, and one of them being super late on a big-time possession, and to have that jacked-up heave three-pointer, not realizing the clock, well, now how great were the other plays? The plays down the stretch are way more criticized and way more important. And they failed. They absolutely failed. So the credit, or I'm sorry, not the credit. Well, no, the credit goes to Toronto, absolutely. They made the plays late. Siakam stepped up. Van-Vleet stepped up. Marc Gasol defensively. They executed the game plan. The credit goes to the Toronto Raptors. The blame, which this is where I was going to, the blame, Embiid and Ben Simmons. These are supposed to be the two. These are supposed to be the two to make the plays, to win basketball games, to carry the squad. And that is not what we saw. So let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. I will see you next time.